boobs, but definitely much less gangster. With a start like this, on a day like this, it's good to be this white boy prankster. I don't push a Benz, love my VW, drive an old drop top, it's what I love to do, and it gets me.
This is the 80s Show on iHeartRadio.
Say ho, ho, say ho, 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 ho. Let's start the show, let's start the show. Come on, let's go, come on, let's go. Say ho, ho, say ho, whoa, ho, whoa. Let's start the show, let's start the show, let's start the show, let's start the show.
Me. I. Listen to what I have to say. I believe that in my heart, I know what's right to do, and I'm going to follow my own dream. Yeah, following your own dream is great. Paying attention to the voices in your head. You know, not the ones that you take medication to make go away, but the voices in your head that guide you, the voices in your heart and mind. Those things are really important. But there's such a lot of emphasis placed on self in America, I find. Like when I grew up in England, it wasn't the same way. Now, English people are, well, for the most part, one of the reasons I was glad to leave that godforsaken windswept rock like a man making a jailbreak was English people don't exactly sparkle with ambition a lot of the time. They've got this expression over there, the tall poppy syndrome. Meaning, anybody thinks they're going to do anything remotely outside of the norm, poppy, sticks its head up a little bit over the rest, whack, going to get it cut off real good. And that spirit of enterprise, that spirit of ambition, of entrepreneurialism that exists in America in a way that it doesn't exist in a lot of other parts of the world is a wonderful, amazing, incredible thing and part of what absolutely makes this country what it is. It's fantastic. But if you go into an American bookstore versus an English bookstore, or bookstores in other parts of the world, the self-help section is mammoth by comparison. Discovering your true self. Living a wonderful life. Reaching your full potential, your dream life. How can you be great? And people are so into themselves. People are so absolutely 100% into themselves. You know how to sell somebody something in America? Make it about them. Seriously. Any kind of self-help book is all about you, really. It's just somebody telling you things that you want to hear about yourself. You're full of untapped potential. There are greatness and riches in your future. And look, I don't want to devalue that at all. Because you know what? Chances are you probably are probably are full of untapped potential. You probably, if you apply yourself, could have both greatness and or riches in your future. And that's awesome and that's wonderful. But there's a time when that supersedes, and I see it happening all around me, that supersedes the ability to listen. People are so narcissistically focused on themselves in this day and age. You know what? There's value outside of you. There's value in what other people have to say, in what other people have to think. It's not all about us. It's not all about you. It's not all about whatever it is that we've become in this incredibly narcissistic culture, spurred on to make us even worse human beings by the advent of the digital age. When MySpace came out and everybody all of a sudden got to have their own website, their own corner of the interwebs, the way only rock stars and movie stars and superstars had in the past. Like, if you were the type of person with your own website, you were definitely something. But all of a sudden, you have this representation of yourself online, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or MySpace back in the day. MySpace was the beginning. MySpace was the beginning of the narcissistic downfall of America and, you know, the world in a lot of ways. And look, knowledge of self, improvement of self, being the very best you can be, those are all wonderful, wonderful things. I'm not trying to take away from that. If you're on some big self-improvement kick, pat yourself on the back for me, although I'm quite sure you've done it plenty of times today yourself, so it's a little bit moot at that point. Pat yourself on the back for me. Go out, be the best you can possibly become. But remember, it's an enormous world. And you and I, we're just one tiny, and on some days, vital part of it. But in a day and age when everybody is so focused on themselves, maybe for a moment, take a second to appreciate all that is around you, that is great, that is wondrous. That is incredible. That is not you. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Winston Churchill.
I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. This is my United States of whatever. Picture me giving a damn, I said never. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Every day you're going and working, running that rat race at that pace in that place will leave a bad taste for anyone, everyone working day after day. So buddy, I gotta say, for you, there's gotta be a better way. Yeah, and you do what they told ya. Company man, feel it, a mindless little soldier. How can you live like that and maintain your composure? Before it's begun, your life's already freaking over. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. This is my United States of whatever. Picture me giving a damn, I said never. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. I won't be owned or controlled, and I won't sell my soul and my goals for a steady piece of the payroll. All that glitters isn't gold, I can't be bought or sold, and your penny paycheck isn't worth what you sold. So fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. I'm not your drone worker, be I'm fucking AD Roundtree, smartest guy in the room at all time, which is why I will do what I want, and I will always stay fly. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. This is my United States of whatever. Picture me giving a damn, I said never. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. And you do what they told ya. 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 Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. This is my United States of whatever. Picture me giving a damn, I said never. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah, I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Yeah. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a music to save you. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a music to save you. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Hey, you, what's that sound? Coming so loud from your radio dial. AD, be getting down when you're rocking the jams. Here I am, going back once again. I'm ruling all city like a
So, there's a significant amount of controversy around, what would you call him? Libertarian, wet dream, presidential hopeful Rand Paul. See, I don't know if anybody actually expects him to win the presidential election, but there's, he's junior senator in Kentucky. And there's a law there which says you're only allowed to run for 1 gig at a time. Meaning if he runs for president and loses, which I don't know, we got to see the lineup, but I don't have high hopes for the homeboy. If he runs for senator and if he runs for president and loses, that means he's taken himself out of the running for a junior senator of Kentucky. So it's a whole big thing, and we'll discuss Rand Paul, that apple that fell so woefully far from the tree. Everybody thought he was like Ron Paul. Ron Paul was this like libertarian thing. Fantastic ideology as far as I'm concerned. Really, really liked a lot of what he had to say and a lot of how he thought, and was just very, very into this idea of Ron Paul. And everybody thought like Rand Paul was going to be a chip off the old block, like the $6 million Paul. We can rebuild him better, faster, stronger, more. Because the thing that kind of helped keep Ron Paul from being taken all that seriously in this particular situation was the fact that he's just kind of too rickety and crypt keeper-esque for people to feel confident with him being in charge. He had that high, wavery voice, and he looked like he was ready to keel over at any moment. And, you know, we live in a society that needs our presidents to look as though they have significantly more backbone available to them should the time come they need to use it. and everybody had high hopes for Rand Paul. Well, a lot of people still do. I'm not one of them, and we'll get into his whole situation a little later on in the show. Right now, though, Funkhouser, A, what's going on in the world? B, how are you? Did you stay up really late watching the 87th Annual Academy Awards?
Well, it's days like yesterday where I'm thankful I don't live on the East Coast because they had to stay up till like midnight to watch the whole thing. I started when the sun was up at like 3 and watched all the way through, every moment.
All 4 hours?
4+. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, wish I had my day back. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bad decision.
Yeah, all 4 hours. Around hour 2, were you praying that Bradley Cooper would take you out with his sniper rifle? Because I think most people were.
Yeah, well,
What
you know,
else?
the host guy, Neil Patrick Harris, he wrote a bunch of jokes that like really fell flat this year. It's award shows like this where I miss like whoopee.
Well, did he write his own jokes?
Probably not. Well, I mean, you have to kind of write on the fly after something happens. You know, there's a joke here and there that happens live. And so he wrote those, but they just were so...
That's why when you get someone like Steve Martin or Billy Crystal to do it, someone that's actually been... There's a difference between actors and people that create things. Actors are sock puppets. They've got a scriptwriter or they've got a director or a combination of the two. They've got their hand up their butts and they're moving their mouths and they're really just an empty vessel. That's what actors are. But you get people that are actual creatives. You get people like Billy Crystal, you know, people that have been stand-up comics, people that have been writers, people that have been... Yeah, people that have been folks that created content. Yeah. Like, actors do nothing. They create nothing. They're just someone else's empty vessel glove puppet. But if you're the type of person that can sit down, look at a page, and have nothing, and then in a couple of hours have a bunch of ha-has and hee-hees, well, that's the type of person that can handle the writing jokes on the fly thing. My favorite Oscar hosting line ever was Steve Martin's. And he came out and he said, and this was after Billy Crystal had done it like 3 or 4 years in a row, it seemed like. And Steve Martin came out and he went, hosting the Oscars is like making love to a beautiful woman. It's something I only get to do when Billy Crystal's out of town. Freaking genius. And you know he wrote that himself because, you know, it's Steve Martin and he's a genius. But if you're just, you know, if you're just a dancing monkey boy the way Neil Patrick Harris is, and I love him. I think he's great at being a dancing monkey boy and he really brings a lot to some of the things he does. I enjoy watching him on screen. But if you're not a creative person, you shouldn't be left alone to write your own jokes. You should have, I don't know, you know, Jeff Ross or Amy Schumer providing you setups as you come off stage. You're like, what do I say next? You know, you should have someone who has those skills sharpened.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on.
Well, the 87th Annual Academy Awards took place last night.
Mm-hmm. And like we said, the show went really long. Mm-hmm. Had something in common with Neil Patrick Harris. Hi-oh. He looked very impressive in his tighty whities. Go on.
Neil Patrick Harris opened the show with a musical number, Moving Pictures.
His way of making straight men wonder if they'd been tricked into watching the Tonys.
You know, that's what I thought, too. What am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Patricia Arquette urged the importance of equality for women in her acceptance speech.
Mm-hmm. Everyone was so moved by her words that they only made minimal requirements of shallow, snarky remarks about her really, really weird hair.
Gwyneth Paltrow introduced one of the best song nominees.
Yep. And at that moment, millions of viewers decided to consciously uncouple from the Oscars. See, this is why I don't have to watch it. I don't have to spend 4 hours of my life watching an orgy of self-congratulatory reach-arounds and inside baseball stuff. Because I can go online the next day, catch the cliff notes, and sound like I know what happened because I caught all the good stuff. I advise you do that next year, Funkhouser. Although you're a production dude, so you're probably interested in the way it's shot and the way they're doing things.
Yeah.
Is it live? Is it completely live?
It's completely live. They had 4 behind-the-scenes cameras you could watch online this year. And one was like a side shot of the stage, and one was backstage and a director's cut. So that's what I found interesting is I had a second screen experience where I could see what was happening in between the commercials and stuff. And I'm a nerd like that, so that's